We are getting there, so if you will stand. Ron, if you'll lead us in prayer.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Tim, you'll pray instead of doing the pledge, since I got that mixed up all good.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you, Lord, for us coming together, God, for the benefit of our community, God. God, we ask that you be in this meeting, God. Touch our minds, touch our heart. Help us to be one, God. Bless our rich country. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Nelson, take it away.
Okay, we've got a new song today. Everybody get your song sheets. They have the Rotary name at the top, so you should be able to recognize them. Okay, now this is to the tune of, now everybody listen up. This is to the tune of Give My Regards to Broadway.
To my city clerk.
Which, oh good, so Brian knows it at least, but you've all heard it before. We're going to sing it through once, and I'm going to see how you do, and decide if we have to sing it through again. So here we go. Sing out a song of Rotary, echoing throughout the land. Give of yourself to serve another with a helpful Rotary hand. Working together helps us to remember our purpose grand. Sing out a song of Rotary and let it echo throughout the land.
They sound good.
I told Matt did not have an excuse at all, because I know his mama can belt this song out like you've never heard.
That's
right. Anyway, y'all did good. Y'all did good.
You didn't hear it.
I did not hear it.
Thank you for not doing that.
You're welcome.
We have several birthdays. I'm going to go ahead and mention them in case they weren't last week, but Andrew Brock has one, 11/17, just passed. Tim Bruner, 11/18. Phil Hacker, 11/16. Penny Reeder, 11/18. Fred One, 11/23. A lot of birthdays this month. Anniversaries, Pat Dunnigan, Rotary, 21 years. Steve Massey, 6 years. Preston Gray, 75 years.
That's the wrong president right there.
The wrong way.
That's Pepe's dad.
Okay.
We need to scratch that one.
You so right.
But you weren't here last week. We made mention of that last week.
Cool. Well, Sergeant with Arms, are you ready?
Listen, let me tell you. Yeah, all kinds of course that way.
We're trying to trip you up.
Wasn't an old man's fault.
We picked you up.
Oh, what a beautiful day. Haven't had any rain in 3 or 4 weeks, and the parade day we have rain. I want you all to know that you sounded really good singing that song. And Nelson only gave the sheets out to those who could sing. He didn't give me one. So I just stood there and listened. I was admonished last week, Mr. President, for not doing Rotary Friend. So today we will do Rotary Friends Forever. Max McElmurray, can you tell us about your Rotary Friend
He's got his
Forever?
notes in his pocket.
Would you like to come up to the microphone and do this, or you want to just stand at attention?
If you want them to look at me, I'll come up.
Oh, come on up. See, I haven't done that before. I do it to Max because I like to harass him. Let me mark that I have done him.
Of course, you've done me 3 times already.
No, I haven't. I marked the one. Remember, is it the truth?
Oh, he's got notes, guys. We can use one.
My Rotary friend is Senior Vice President of Audit and Compliance at the First Community Bank.
All of you know Dwight Ford. Dwight is for most of you, is the same age as Jack Benny. You
Now or
older
perpetually?
people will know that. Dwight was raised in Sulphur Rock and graduated from high school there. He started a part-time job at Citizens Bank, and then he enrolled at Lyon College for 3 days. He dropped out early in life. He went back to Citizens Bank and completed 2 years at UACCB, got his degree at Arkansas State and an MBA from UALR. Dwight has a beautiful 3.5-year-old daughter by the name of Karis, who absolutely is the light of his life, and he enjoys living here. It's the best place for him. He initially had been to New York for a while and then worked in Memphis before he came back home. Dwight is involved with the Old Independence Museum and the Habitat for Humanities. He attends St. Paul's Episcopal Church, where he serves on the vestry. I believe that's it, Dwight. Anything you'd like to add?
Thank you,
Don't call on
Max.
me next week.
I have you marked off until the next time I call on you. Dwight, you may be the most successful dropout from Lyon College. We commend you on that. Well, now I have 2 stories for you today, okay?
Johnny,
It's-
I like to add, you call on me after I bragged on what nice, beautiful jokes you've been telling. Everybody else was running you down.
And now it's your turn, Max. Now, ladies, you know it's Christmas time, and you know there's a hustle bustle in the stores, and this lady was shopping in downtown Little Rock, and she lost her purse, and a little boy found it, and he found her, and he gave it back to her, and she looked in the purse, and she said, wait a minute, I had a $100 bill in that purse when I lost it, and now I have 100 $1 bills. What's the deal? He said, well, ma'am, the last 2 purses I found had a $100 bill in them, and the lady didn't have anything to give me a tip.
Let's see, that's about a 6, maybe.
Well, you said tell the worst joke I had. Now, I want to tell you the good one, okay? I may not be able to find it. There's a $100 bill one again. Great Scott, Max, did you get my joke? No. A Texas newspaper reported that the oldest cowboy in Texas had just died. He was 106. Fortunately, they had interviewed him shortly before his death and asked what caused him to live so long. And the family asked the reporter if he would just write the obituary, since he had a recent interview. So the obituary went like this: the oldest cowboy in Texas has just passed away. I asked him what the secret to his longevity was, and he said, every morning I sprinkle a little gunpowder on my cereal. The cowboy left behind a wife, 8 children, 21 grandchildren, 32 great-grandchildren, and a 30-foot hole at the crematorium. I got some more stuff.
That was better, yeah.
Well, I had to tell them that one because y'all said tell where it's going.
Secretary's report, Amanda.
Okay, I'll show that we have 26 Rotarians here today. Gina is still with us. And I see Big Daddy Randy back there. Randy, welcome. Kurt, do you have a guest with you today?
I have my wonderful wife, Laura, who's been here before.
Yes, not really a guest, but welcome. Did I miss any? Dennis?
Yes, I have Sean Robinson. He's with Bad Boys. He's worked for me.
Alright, welcome. Couple of mentions. Cassandra Skelton wanted me to let you guys know that if anybody needs an angel tree name, that she has several at her office at Centennial Bank. So if you are looking for a angel tree name, if you would stop by and see her, she has several names there. And Kathy wanted me to mention that the Side Street Steppers, a vintage music band, is going to be playing on Saturday, December the 3rd at 2 p.m. at Elizabeth's. And it's a fundraiser for the Ozark Foothills Film Fest. So if anyone is interested in going to that, I'll leave this up here and you can look at it after the meeting.
I've got tickets.
Kathy has tickets. Kathy has tickets. So if you want to buy tickets, see Kathy.
And if you haven't heard them, you should go.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I have sent out the scholarship applications to all the schools. If you know of a graduating senior at any of our high schools, if you're, that needs one, let me know. I did send them out, but sometimes they don't always get them, so just let me know. Still looking for a program chair for March. If you can handle the programs for the month of March, please let me know. I need that done pretty soon. And we're also still looking for an IT person to help us laptop.
Well, sure would have come in handy.
Yes. So if anybody knows of anybody that would be interested, it doesn't have to be you. If you know somebody from work, I think the board discussed it and we were willing to give them an honorary membership just to come, where they don't have to pay to be a Rotarian. They can just come each week and handle the IT stuff and get a free meal. We would greatly appreciate it. So if you know anybody that could serve in that aspect, please let Steve or myself know. And I think that's all I have.
Good deal. Also, this is the last Rotary that Gina will be with us. And of course, she did this as a project and joined us temporarily. But we've been happy to have her. She's completing her project in her semester. So let's give her a hand and welcome her back. I'm trying to talk her into joining, but she will if she can talk somebody else into paying for it.
Do you know anything about computers?
We are now
Not the best person for that.
All right, Ken, do you have a treasurer's report?
No report.
For today, all right. Thanks to our greeter for today. Next week is supposed to be Jacob Landers. And tonight, guess what tonight is? A parade. We need as many people as they can to come and throw candy. Johnny has our float ATV, whatever you want to call it, ready to go, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and it may have to float.
Exactly. If they don't cancel, we probably will need a float. Hey, they have those rigs now that both float and go on wheels.
That's true. Did you pick up one of those?
I didn't. I should have. But if you can help us at all, please do come tonight. Bring your raincoat.
Where do we need to be?
5:30 at the old Regions Bank Building. If at all possible, 5:30 the old Regions Bank Building. And we'll go from there as we usually do. How many can help? Just for show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, anybody else? Okie dokie. If you're unable to walk that far, come and you can drive the rig and I'll walk behind it. So, all right, Christmas party coming up in 2 weeks on the 12th. Lyon College. Bill Walmsley will be our speaker of the evening. E.J. Jones and his little ensemble will be doing our music. Please bring a centerpiece if you're coming, like we did last year, for each table, and get those to me by either next week or get it to me at the office there prior to the event. And we'll be setting up a little early that day. Amanda has a sign-up sheet for the Christmas party, so if you're going to be there and bring somebody with you, please sign up. Once everybody attend, make it a big deal. And I'm sure that Bill will have many things to surprise you, but I'm sure Bill will be a good speaker as well. So please don't forget that, and please attend it if at all possible. Dictionaries. Brenda, I'll let you go over the service stuff.
We only have 3 people who have not, and I'm one of the 3, gone out to the schools to do their presentation with the dictionaries for 3rd graders. Matt Martin and Cassandra Skelton, those are the other 2, and myself, so bringing that to a closure.
Okay. So please get that done if at all possible in the next week or so. We're still doing the items for the dogs and cats. I forgot to bring mine today,
Today's the last day.
and today's the last day, but I will get you some stuff or get it out there one or 2. Candy for Christmas parade, if you still have some, you can bring it by my office or Amanda's for tonight. We'll get it. I think that's about it. Next week's meeting will be the VHS choir director and choir. So don't miss that. We'll have a little concert. And with that being said, we have Jackie Bacall with us, and she's the general counsel at Citizens Bank. Fairly new employee there, I think. But Jackie received her Juris Doctorate, cum laude, from the Chicago-Kent College of Law. And before joining the Citizens Bank, Jackie worked as an attorney in Chicago. So let's welcome Jackie, and she's going to talk to us about the family leave, or not family leave, Fair Labor Standards Act. So it's going to be interesting. Let's welcome her, and Jackie, come and tell us what you have.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming me here today. As you heard from your president, I'm new to Batesville, so I'm very honored that you decided to invite me to give a presentation to you all today. Today's presentation is about the fair wage and hour laws. And actually, do you mind maybe focusing it a little bit better? Thank you. I can do that.
Steve, does she want to move the microphone? She can take it out and stand aside.
Oh yeah, that might be this. There we go. So as you may have heard, this is actually an area of the law that's gotten a lot of press attention lately. One of the reasons is because of the federal judge's ruling in the Eastern District of Texas last week, which stalled the regulation that was supposed to go into effect on December 1st, which would have effectively doubled the salary threshold for paying overtime to workers. But even though that has been stalled, this is still a very important law, and it's important for risk management purposes for your company that you make sure that you comply with it, because I actually have seen companies get bankrupted from this. And I also want to say too, if you want to stop me at any time during the presentation and ask a question, feel free to do so. This presentation is a little bit long, so I'm going to try and get through it kind of fast. We might not get through all of it. So if you have a question that, other people might have the same question too, so feel free to stop me at any time. We're probably not going to have time for questions at the end. All right, so of course I have to start with the legal disclaimer. And this little disclaimer is actually pretty important for this presentation. And the reason is that some of the analysis that are required in determining whether or not you need to pay an employee overtime can be very fact specific. And it might not be, you might be in a situation where the facts that pertain to your company weren't necessarily addressed in this presentation, or you might be in a situation where one of your employees maybe falls within a gray area. And if that's the case, given some of the penalties that can result from violating the FLSA, I highly encourage you to seek your own legal counsel to make sure that you're getting it right and to make sure that you avoid any penalties to your company. So basically, the purpose of the FLSA is to, well, I guess this is basically an overview of the topics that we're going to go over are what type of employers and employees have to, are regulated by the FLSA, the exemptions from the FLSA's minimum wage and overtime requirements, how you calculate overtime, and some commonly litigated issues. All right, so this is the whole why should you care, and I have shortened this presentation, so I'm not going to show you this scary infomercial from the scary class action attorney, but you guys get the point. This is an area where we're seeing, well, Law 360 thinks that there's going to be more litigation in this area, but I think that that projection was based on the notion that the salary threshold was basically going to double. But even though that's not really happening, class action attorneys, what they do sometimes is they just watch the news and figure out what they should sue people for. So, since this has been an area that's gotten a lot of media attention, then they think, oh, this could be a big area to turn our attention to. And this is why you should care. The big reason is that the FLSA authorizes collective actions, which for the purposes of this presentation is basically the same as a class action. So you could be faced with a class action from your employees. It requires a payment of back pay for up to 2 years or 3 years if the violation was willful. It requires a payment of liquidated damages unless you can show as the employer that you have acted in good faith. And this is the big one, that the prevailing party gets attorney's fees. So this is why class action attorneys like this type of lawsuit, because they're basically guaranteed that they're going to get their attorney's fees. All right, so like I said before, the areas that this law governs are minimum wages, maximum hours, overtime comp, child labor, equal pay, payroll requirements, and record keeping. For the purposes of time, I'm not going to go into every single one of these issues. Child labor, I'll touch on that briefly now. Child labor would really depend on if you have a business that hires maybe, teenagers, like, usually you see that in restaurants where maybe your busboys and busgirls are teenagers, or, your local ice cream shop where the ice cream scooper is a teenager. I'm not going to go into that. And I'm also not going to go into the equal pay or payroll and record keeping requirements. The FLSA is administered by the Wage and Hour Division of the U.S. Department of Labor, and this is at the federal level. And at the state level, it's administered by the Arkansas Department of Labor. So with any type of state law, usually federal law preempts, but if the state law affords better treatment to a class of individuals, then the state law will preempt federal law. So as of January, basically as of next year, the minimum wage in Arkansas is going to increase to $8.50, and since that's more than the federal wage, Arkansas law in this case preempts federal law. And an employee has to pay overtime, which is 1.5 times the regular rate of pay, to non-exempt employees for all hours worked in excess of 40 hours a week. So this is where the law in Arkansas is consistent with the federal law. Okay, so pretty much everyone has to comply with the FLSA. Even if you are exempt, if you think you're exempt, I would definitely talk to an attorney about that one, because there are very few instances where an employer or an employee are exempt. And I actually went to a presentation on this, and the attorney said that he was involved in, he had researched one of these cases, but he said by the time that it was like a boat maker in Florida, that by the time the boat maker in Florida probably spent all of the money litigating this case, they would have been better off just complying with the FLSA. So there's two ways for an enterprise or an individual to be covered. So enterprise level, that is where the test applies to the employer itself. And that means that an employer is covered if it's engaged in commerce, in the production of or goods for commerce, and they have at least 2 employees and have at least $500,000 in sales or business. So perhaps your business doesn't satisfy the enterprise coverage, but the individual coverage would mean for your employee that the employee is engaged in interstate commerce or in the production of goods. So that's pretty broad. So for instance, let's say your company, let's say you have one of those companies that operates a call center to do surveys. Okay, well, if your employees are making calls out of state to conduct those surveys, that would be considered interstate commerce, and that employee would be covered. So basically, everyone is covered, more or less. These are the exceptions. Ones are a family business. That's a pretty narrow exception because it only applies to lineal ancestors and descendants. So if you work for your uncle's company, you probably are covered by the FLSA. But if your children work in your business, you don't need to pay them overtime. So hire your kids, I guess. The other one is independent contractors, which I can get into a little bit if people have questions about that one. So that one is kind of tricky. Volunteers, interns, and trainees, which again, I kind of lump those into the independent contractor category, and those can be a little bit tricky as well. Okay, so the first step in the analysis, so once you've determined that your employees or your business has to comply with the FLSA, the next part is to figure out which employees are covered. So there's a two-pronged test, which is the salary basis test and the duties test. So both need to be satisfied for the employee to be exempt from the minimum wage and not the minimum wage, but the overtime requirements. So this is a list, and we'll go into these more specifically, of the types of employees that are considered exempt. You have your administrative employees, executives, professionals, highly compensated employees, computer professionals, outside sales employees, and commissioned retail sales employees. So, deciding whether an employee is exempt or non-exempt requires a careful analysis. But these types are the ones that you generally consider non-exempt. Those are your blue-collar workers who work on a production line in janitorial positions or construction positions. Pink-colored workers such as LPNs, waitstaff, and filing clerks, and first responders such as police officers and firefighters. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the salary basis test because before I get into all of the different job descriptions, because those tend to be more nuanced. But in order for the FLSA to not apply to an employee, the employee needs to be paid $455 per week, and that is a weekly test. So if the employee's pay maybe fluctuates for whatever reason between pay periods, you still need to look at it as $450 on a weekly basis. The salary cannot be reduced because of the quantity or quality of the employee's work. So basically it has to be a guaranteed salary. And the employer cannot make any improper deductions from the salary. So what's been in the news is the fact that the predetermined salary will not increase to $913 per week. That was pursuant to a Department of Labor regulation. And that was to go into effect on December 1st, 2016. Now, a few things that I have to say about this is that, first of all, the court in this case only issued a preliminary injunction, which means that it's temporary, but I doubt that that judge would overrule his decision. That seems pretty unlikely. So it'll probably if I had to guess, it would probably turn into a permanent injunction. The question, though, going forward would be whether or not the Trump administration would appeal that ruling. So, if in your company you're not going to pay overtime based on this proposed rule that is, as of now, not going into effect, I would suggest that you keep tabs on the news very, very closely and that you're prepared to make the changes to your business that you need to make in order to comply with this in the event that this judge's opinion gets overruled, and you might be in a position where you have to act quickly. I also too would definitely talk to whoever your counsel is for your company to figure out how to maneuver this situation, because right now we're kind of working in a gray area a little bit here, which is not helpful for businesses, since businesses like to plan in advance and know what's going to happen. But if you have any questions on this issue, just let me know.
But the base right now is 455, right?
Yes, the base right now is 455, and it will, well, for the time being, it will stay 455. But that could change based on later court rulings. So I definitely recommend that all business owners really keep tabs on this and that they really watch it closely. The other thing I have to say too is that from a business perspective, some businesses have already adopted the 913 standard. And I don't see them rolling it back, because what you give to your employees can be difficult to take away. It can hurt morale. So businesses that don't want to adopt it, I could need to really look at the markets that they work in and see if other employers are offering overtime for individuals that make less than 913, because it may put you in a position where you aren't as competitive as the market. So, but that's kind of that's a business decision, it's not a legal one. So. Okay, now I'm going to get into the various duties tests for each of the type of exempt workers. So the important thing to remember here is that it's very important for everyone you hire and for each class of employee that you have a very specific job description for all of them. And the reason why is because if you're ever audited by the Department of Labor, they're going to look at the job description. It's the first thing that they're going to look at for each one of your employees to see if any of them are considered exempt or non-exempt, and whether or not you have classified them appropriately. So the first one of these exemptions is a learned professionals exemption. And this applies to individuals whose primary duty is the performance of work requiring advanced knowledge. And usually it has to be in a field of science or learning. And usually this, I will say this too, this exemption generally doesn't apply to individuals that have a college degree. Usually the individual has to have some type of professional or master's degree or something of that sort in order for this exemption to apply. So the areas that this applies to are law, medicine, theology, accounting, engineering, architect, teaching. So as you can see, if you were going to write a job description for someone in this area, you would want to put the type of educational requirements that you would want this individual to have. The next one is the creative professionals. So those are individuals that are involved in work requiring invention, imagination, originality, or talent. So those are your actors, your musicians, painters, cartoonists, essayists, and sometimes writers within advertising agencies, but again, that one is a gray area, and you really have to scrutinize whether or not your classification would be correct in that circumstance. Then there's the administrative employee. This is the one that employers get wrong most of the time. So the employee has to have a duty that involves two things. Performance of office or non-manual work directly related to the management or general operations of the employer or to the customers, and the exercise of discretion and independent judgment for matters of significance. So this would really be your mid-level manager. So a good example would be, does your manager have, does your employee have the authority to execute a contract on behalf of your business that's maybe worth $1 million, versus is the employee a line worker that the consequence of their error could cost the company $1 million? The former would be considered an administrative employee because that individual can exercise their judgment in terms of whether or not to execute the contract and whether or not it's a good idea for your business. But the latter employee would not be considered administrative. And the reason why is because that individual, the line worker, is likely being supervised by other people who tell that individual how to perform their duties. And just the fact that their screw up might cost the company $1 million, that doesn't make them an administrative employee. And this is the one where employers who are maybe a little shady, this is where they like to stuff a lot of people into this exemption, but it probably isn't accurate. Okay, the next one is the executive employee. So these are your officers of your company, for instance, and their primary duty is the management of the enterprise. And they customarily and regularly direct the work of 2 or more employees. So an important part of this test is that the individual, if you're going to classify them as exempt because they're an executive employee, they need to have individuals working under them. So for me, I'm a one-woman department, so I would not fall under this exemption because I don't, no one really reports to me directly, and I also don't have the authority to hire or fire anyone. So that's one thing to keep in mind with this one. The next one is the highly compensated employees test. So this is basically saying that if you're paid enough, you don't get overtime. It kind of supersedes the duties test in a way, or supplements it. So individuals in this area must earn at least $100,000 per year, and they have to perform office or non-manual work. And their duties have to be primarily executive, administrative, or professional in nature. Then there's the computer professionals, but this only applies to highly skilled computer professionals. So it would be someone like the head of your IT department, for instance, but someone in your IT help department that maybe fields calls from individuals when something is wrong with their computer, let's say, likely wouldn't fall under this type of exemption. They really need to be involved in designing and implementing computer systems and things of that nature. The next one is the outside sales employees, and they need to be making sales. And they need to be customarily and regularly engaged away from the place of work. And then the last one here is the commissioned retail sales employees. The employee has to be employed by a retail or service establishment. And the employee's total earnings must be at least 1.5 times the federal minimum wage for each work week worked. And more than half of the employee's total compensation must come from commission. So this probably applied to me when I worked at Nordstrom's in college, and they paid me only on commission. And now I see why. So that would be an example of that type of exemption. Okay. Now let's get into what time is considered time where individuals need to be compensated. So the courts have adopted this idea of the continuous workday principle, which means that anything that someone does between the start of the workday and the end of the workday is something that you compensate for. So, this is why requiring your employees to punch in and punch out is very important. And it's important to tell them that they really need to comply with your rules about punching in and punching out. And you also need to tell your managers, because they can really be one of the classes of individuals that can cause your company to screw this up, that when someone comes in, the manager needs to allow them to clock in. You can't say to someone, hey, do you mind doing a few things and then punch in? That's a big no-no, and your company will get in a lot of trouble for that one. The other thing too is you can't make people punch out for bathroom breaks and things like that. That's what the notion of the continuous workday is. You can require people to punch out for, they're gonna take a break that's longer than 20 minutes. It's definitely permissible. But just because they do one little thing that's maybe gonna take 5 or 10 minutes, you can't be forcing them to punch in and punch out all the time. So the commonly litigated issues, and this is where I would highly suggest getting an attorney for these ones, is the donning and doffing of clothing or protective gear. So they're, depending on the facts and circumstances, and in some workplaces, donning and doffing of protective gear can be considered time that's part of, that must be, Is there another question? Oh, where there must be compensation if that is integral to the job. The other one are preliminary and post-preliminary activities, like maybe if you work at a restaurant and you're cleaning some knives, that is something that I would consider part of your duties, and that individual should get paid for that. Booting up a computer, washing up, things like that. Travel time to and from work, now that really depends a lot on the nature of the business and that employee's duties within the business. Walking time, this is how much this has been litigated. Walking time to and from a locker on a front line, waiting or on call time, training, onboarding and seminars, testing, and any type of volunteer work that employees do in connection with your business. All right, let me see how I'm doing on time. All right, I will try and get this wrapped up within the next 5 minutes. So calculating overtime, it's 1.5 times the regular rate of pay. And when looking at pay, to determine what the base rate is, you have to look at the wages, the commissions, non-discretionary bonuses, and shift differential. So all of that would be included in what's considered the base pay to determine what the overtime rate is. The things that are not included are gifts, paid time off, reimbursements for work-related expenses, discretionary bonuses, and benefit plan contributions. All right. In most cases, overtime is calculated on a work week basis with averaging hours over 2 or more, but averaging hours over 2 or more weeks is not permitted. So this would be an example where, let's say you have an employee that works 35 hours in week 1 and 45 hours in week 2. You can't say, oh, well, that averages to 40 hours a week. Instead, the law looks at it at a week-by-week basis. So for week 1, you wouldn't have to pay overtime, but for week 2, you would. An employee may be paid on a piece rate, salary, commission, or some other basis, but all earnings have to basically be converted into some type of regular pay or hourly rate. And the regular rate is typically calculated by the total pay rate in a given week by the total number of actual hours worked that week. So this would be an area, if any of you pay your employees on some type of different metric, maybe it's just commission-based, or you've developed certain types of incentive programs, and this would be an area where you would want to contact an attorney to make sure that you are calculating your base pay appropriately, and that you're including or excluding the things that should be included or excluded in terms of determining that amount. So the next part of this, presentation, I just had some hypotheticals, but you guys seem that you're smart enough that you don't need me to go through all of those. And I'll spare you in the interest of time. But if anyone has any questions, let me know.
So if they're punching a clock every day and you're paying overtime, this is nil and void, right?
That means that you are complying with the law, so that's good. But I wouldn't say it's null and void.
Well, I mean, you're not, no one in that category is considered a salaried employee. If you're paid an hourly wage that's above, at least or above the minimum wage plus time and a half for everything they work, that's the legitimacy of the law, right?
Yes, that is. But the question would be, though, if you are concerned about this, would be, are you appropriately classifying someone as an exempt or non-exempt employee? So maybe, for instance, you've decided, maybe you have a large janitorial staff and you've decided to say that the head of the cleaning staff is someone that will be a flat rate salaried employee. That's where you would want to scrutinize out a little bit more and say, you know, does that really make sense given the types of duties I've assigned to this person?
You know, there's an intricacy in the way I do some of it. I have hourly rated employees that also make commission every week. So those you have to pay premium overtime on a calculative basis based on what that amount of earnings was times the number of hours they worked overtime. So, and that's a really obscure little part of this law that a lot of people don't know about.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
How much chance do you think there is of this minimum salary, for example, that the judge stood against last week? How much chance do you think there is of that coming back forward?
I don't know. So the question was, what are the chances I think that the minimum salary requirement is going to go back to is going to go to the 913? I don't know. What I would pay close attention to is what Trump does in his first 100 days of office. He has said that he doesn't support minimum wage increases, which would lead me to believe that he wouldn't file an appeal in this case. But he has also said too that part of his platform is, you know, helping out the middle class and particularly people in rural areas. So it's hard to say what type of policy he would adopt on this. But I would definitely watch the news on it and keep up with it.
I was thinking about job descriptions. I mean, just in looking over some job descriptions, they're very vague.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the famous line of job duties as assigned. This very general, you know, whatever I tell you to do, yeah, that's your job. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how concerned does an employer need to be with reviewing those and perhaps clarifying the verbiage involved?
If you have decided to, if you've decided that you're going to pay these individuals overtime, then I wouldn't maybe be as concerned. Because it's hard for any of these individuals to bring a suit against you if you're paying them overtime. Now, if you aren't, that's where I would say you really need to clean up your job descriptions and make sure that the job descriptions and the work that the individuals are actually doing neatly fit in one of these exempt categories. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your time, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Down already, son. Let me tell you.
I feel like Saul on the road to Damascus right now.
You just take care of it.
We will be donating a book on your behalf to the library.
Okay.
Jackie, so thanks for speaking to us. And so your name will go down in history in the county library.
Down in history.
Joker draw.
All
Okay, so what I did was if you bought a red ticket, I transferred it over. The last 3 digits of that red ticket number is now written on a piece of paper like everybody else's. Can you draw me a piece of paper? All right, so the winning ticket is number 51.
Oh, poo.
5-1.
351?
No, just 5-1. 5-1.
51.
Just 5-1?
Just
Oh,
5-1.
so 51
I got 351.
It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a paper.
That was so, we could make it.
It's really.
Yeah,
Right by you.
go get it, Dave, get it.
Everybody.
$1,371.
Everybody buying.
How many cards left now? 20?
17 or 18, I think. Yeah, we're below 20.
We're a little over time, so let's end as we usually do with the 4-way test. Number 1.
Is it true?
Number 2.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number 3.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Number 4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
You are adjourned.
Sounds like the new wage and hour law to me.